funny because I didn't even think of it, but John's one of the guys that keeps me honest on the internet here. When I say outlandish things that I think are whatever, he likes to come on and sort of give me the course correction of maybe you better check that twice.
Yeah, we like to have discussions.
Which I appreciate. I think it's great. And he said, like, it never goes away. There's always a wait, always something to worry about, something to do, and you just got to be able to be good at figuring out where those weights are comfortable, right? Far better than they ever expected. Maybe it's.
I've seen a couple clips of her saying things like that. She's a whole other level of psycho, if I could say in a polite way. I cannot stand her one bit. She's cooked. It really doesn't. Most of the causes are kind of bullshit, and if you look into where the money's going, it's just being embezzled into other things. Right? The government's not interested in giving it to third world nations and lifting up their people because they're more concerned about going in there and stealing their resources due to colonialism and everything like that.
See. Oh, Matt went to bed. Oh, look at that, just like that.
Hello.
You hear me?
Yup.
I can hear you. Even though my headphones don't work. Again.
Yeah, mine doesn't either in this, I guess, so.
Listen, everybody, John is really nervous about this.
Just a little bit. Public speaking is not my strong point, so.
I don't think it's a strong point for any plumber, but we all seem to have intense opinions about many things. So we spit them out in all kinds of meaningful and meaningless ways, right?
Mm-hmm. I think also to do what we do, either if you're doing service or commercial or residential, you kind of got to have a gift of gab to a point too, with certain people.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. You got to keep the conversation going. It's going sideways. You got to, even if it's going good, right? You got to keep everybody on the level.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, John. Who are you?
I am a commercial new install plumber in Edmonton, Alberta. I've been doing that for about 8 years now. Previously, before that, I did 2 years doing trailers and mods, and then before that, I spent 5 years as a carpenter, also doing trailers for Aqua Structures.
Oh, okay, like so just the Aqua ones. That's a super popular thing here in Alberta. I've done Aqua trailers. Did you do the campsite stuff when you were doing plumbing as well, or no?
Yeah, it was. I was working for the factory because there's one up here in Spruce Grove, so I did mostly all the new builds and everything. I didn't do too many installs until later on in my career. I did a couple of those, but so
yeah. Sakaris is your Oilers buddy, by the way. He
yeah.
Everybody's golfing now.
Exactly. Well, yeah, between the two of us. But so
who's gonna win it? I was talking to Colton a couple weeks ago, and he's not a hockey fan, but he figures the Avs are gonna win it.
I think so too. I'm also not the biggest hockey guy. Like, I just follow in the playoffs mostly. To be honest, I'm more of a football guy, but I think the Avs will take it. But then again, Lightning, this would be their third one in a row.
I think so.
Yeah. So.
I think. I don't know. History to be made. Now, when you say football, do you mean like NFL football or Canadian football?
Both. I'm more of an NFL guy, but I'm slowly getting back into the CFL and everything again. So, right.
It's pretty tough to get into the CFL. For all of the Americans out there, like, there's 9 teams. There was 10 at one time, and 2 teams had the same name, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, in Saskatchewan, yeah, that was a great period. They also played each other in the Grey Cup. Was that
Right?
in '66 or '67 or something like that? It was
Yeah.
the
Rough Riders versus the Rough Riders. One with a
Yeah,
space in between, and the Rough and the Rider, and one's just one word. Don't
yeah,
mess it up.
yeah. That was the only one you could tell between the two. Only in Canada could something like that exist, right?
I know.
I love
Seriously.
it. So it's definitely a different game. So it's kind of like I'm more of an NFL guy, so it's kind of hard to get back into it again. But
I mean, it's not. It's interesting because lots of people consider it now as sort of the feeder league for the NFL, right? Like lots of those guys come up here and play for a couple of years, get their feet wet, and then put on some muscle and some size or some speed or whatever, and head back down to the States.
oh
Make
yeah,
some big
yeah,
bucks.
that's happened a couple times. So that right, it's nice to have that. I guess you're seeing a lot more decent players come up through the league too and everything. So over the last couple of years, so
Yeah. So who's your NFL team then?
I cheer for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's a long story why.
It has to be. You're Canadian. I cheered for the Redskins, which are whatever they are now, the Commanders? Commandeers? I don't know what they're.
Yeah, they're still the football team to me because I don't think they should have gotten rid of it. That was just a perfect joke name.
They were so bad for so long, right? It just fit.
Oh yeah, they still really aren't that great, but they're division rivals against the Eagles, so too, right? But
The Eagles going to do anything this year?
I hope so. I think that every year, and then there's always ups and downs. It's one of those. Well, I question my fandom weekly, and I'm sure any other Eagles fan can agree with that one. So.
That's the nature of the beast, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
girl, right?
Yeah. Are the Elks going to do anything this year?
I couldn't tell you.
Since they changed their name?
I don't know. I couldn't even tell you. I started following them a little bit last year, but last year was that weird shortened season too and everything. So
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So have you been in Edmonton your whole life?
Yeah, born and raised. I bounced around. I'm living just outside in one of the suburbs right now, but
yeah, northwest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just outside. It's like 10 minutes outside the edge of Edmonton, so it's not too bad.
It's growing like crazy up there.
Oh yeah, especially the south side is ridiculous. If you look at like over the last 10 years, just the amount of land that's been annexed and all these residential areas popping up and everything. It seems like it's every 6 weeks a new one pops up. Like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
we're seeing the same sort of stuff down here, which it'll be interesting to see how that happens what happens over the next 5 or 6 decade with mortgage prices and all the rest of that stuff. If that hot trend continues, right?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I know the
majority. How did you get into what's that?
Oh, I was just gonna say I know the majority of houses up here that are being sold are just flipping into rentals really quickly. So
yeah. That's same for up here as well. Actually, lots of people renting from whoever has the money to buy those things these days. So tell me what you've been plumbing for 8 years?
10.
No.
10 altogether.
10.
Yeah.
And what got you into plumbing? Why are you a plumber?
I didn't really want to get a ticket in carpentry, and I'd been doing that for so long. And then there was an opening because in the shop I worked at, it was all split into different divisions, right? There's the plumbing and then the electrical side and then the framing and the finishing and everything. So I wanted to get into a ticket. I wanted to do something other than carpentry, and there was an opening in the plumbing, and I had 2 buddies that were working in it already. So talked to them and talked to the floor manager and moved over to that. And I enjoyed it. I didn't really learn a whole lot doing trailers. There's not a whole lot of plumbing in there, right?
Not much in there.
Job shacks, you get to do a furnace, if that, right? Other ones, like the wash bars, it's just toilets and urinals, and then the cat ones are just, you get to do a shower, which is, do a couple of those, and it's mind-numbing. So decided to move into commercial because it interested me a little bit more. It seemed like there was a lot more to it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and since then, I've really enjoyed it because there is, right, every day is something different, right? So,
It's the beauty of it, right? You really never know what you're doing in that commercial world because there's always a new problem that comes up. Did you get your, you finish off at Nate? Is that where you went to school?
yeah, that's where I did my all 4 years. So, don't really have, the other option to do schooling here in Edmonton would be going through the union or the pipe college, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard some pros and cons, like they got smaller class sizes and things like that. But if you're not a member the whole time, they're hounding you to become a member of 488, everything like that. So
It's true.
I tried that. I went for 9 months with the union, and
What did you do?
not for me. Definitely not for me.
Why not?
The politics aspect of it was I was not interested in that whatsoever. The jobs they were doing were really cool because I got to go work at Stantec Tower out here, that large one that they just downtown. So that was fun, but as I said, the politics of it, there was it's kind of it was a lot of bullshit to say the least. So
It's a different world, right? The union, like you got to be. I don't even know what the word is for it, and it's. I've said to other people that have asked that the union doesn't have a really strong presence here in Alberta. Certainly not down here in Calgary.
no.
But they sure try hard. Like they're recruiting. Pete's in school right now. They're trying to recruit everybody to come join the union because it's great. But there's very few that cross over to that side, as far as I can tell, anyway. And you did it for 9 months, eh? Did you actually work on that, the big towers and stuff?
Yeah, I was in the parkade. They had it split into kind of 4 different sites. At one point, there was 5 or 6 different sites on there. So I was in half of the parkade because it was about altogether. I think it's about 6 stories down was the whole parkade and everything like that. And then they split the towers into, I think it was 3 different projects. So like every 20 to 30 stories was a different project. So there was multiple mechanical companies on that job at one time, and that kind of led to a bunch of fuck ups and confusions, to say the least. Right? When you would run heating lines to one point and that was all your job, and somebody had to take over it, there was a lot of problems with that in the end. So
I can't imagine that would cause conflict.
yeah, have 3 different mechanical companies doing with the same thing just doesn't seem like a good idea whatsoever.
No, that's a disaster.
Done that project by themselves, like if it was one company, right? Like there's nothing that size up here, so that kind of makes sense why the union got it. That, and there was a whole lot of backdoor dealing, bullshit politics between them, PCL, and the city councils out here and everything. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about some of that stuff. Let's let's do it. I mean, you've been a plumber, you love it, or do you love it?
Oh,
you love what you do?
Most days. Some days when everything's sore and it's like, yeah, I want to do something different, but other days I enjoy what I do, right? Yeah. As I said earlier, the different aspects of commercial makes it really interesting. So I've gotten to do a lot of really cool different things. So.
And you're doing a big truck wash right now, or a mechanic?
It's a mechanic shop. My next job is, I think, a 4-bay commercial truck, like a big 18-wheeler car wash job. So that'll be fun.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be all right. Are you actually doing the car wash, or are they bringing in someone special for that?
Usually it's somebody else that does everything. We kind of stub futures to it, and then we'll do the mechanical room side of it with the boilers and everything like that. But it's somebody doing all the wash aspect of it. So
it's become its own industry, hasn't it? The old car wash industry. There's some pretty specific stuff going on there, eh?
Oh yeah, it's no different than like pools, right? Like up here, I know Master Pools is the company that does most of the pool works up here for new and service and everything like that. So
yeah. All right, so what don't you like about the trade? Like, what do you think? What's some of the cons that you see?
The biggest con that I see right now, and it's I don't know if it would be mostly local for us, but just the way that they've redone the education portion of it as of late, and how they've changed it. I feel like they've changed it to kind of really dumb it down in a sense. Like they're not hammering code as early as they did. Like I started to school in 2014, and then I got my ticket 4 years later. And they hammered, like, first year and second year, they hammered code all the time and all that. And then now they're making it more about hand skills, because I know the whole process up here, how they do it and everything. The companies have been complaining about the lack of hand skills with their apprentices, but they're ignoring the fact that relies on the journeyman and the company to teach those things. And I don't feel like Nate and Sate should be emphasizing those things. They should be teaching the theory aspect of it a hell of a lot more, because now I've had second and third years look at me and be completely inept when it comes to gas code. And it's like, man, we had that shit hammered home when it was like first and second year. So yeah, that's my biggest complaint about it, is just the education side of it.
Is that something that interests you, is getting involved in the education side at some point?
I've thought about it. I know a handful of the instructors at Nate because they've worked with my cousin in the field over the years, because he's a ticketed Red Seal journeyman and pipe fitter also for the last 25 years. And I've thought about it because I've seen ads and everything for when they've been looking, but I think I might work into that into my 40s or something like that a little bit later in the career, because I'd like to help kind of guide it and shape it to a point and have my influence in a way on that, right? Because I feel like there's some really shitty apprentices out there, journeymen, that just didn't learn properly. I'll be straightforward with it, right?
Dude, I won't lie to you. I agree with you, but I mean, it creates so much work for us because I'm on the other side, right? Like I'm on the service and extending the life of those buildings. You build them, and then 5 years later, I show up when everything starts breaking, or sooner, to look after it. And this weekend, I mean, I was in Edmonton. I'm going back to Edmonton to finish off some work, and then I was down in Lethbridge and Calgary. Like, I'm all over the place fixing stuff that is poorly installed.
Right. So yeah, I guess if the education comes up, then you're a little. But at the same time, it's mechanical shit. Stuff breaks, right?
It's gonna break anyway. But you walk into you walk into some places and you're like, oh my, how did it even last that long? Like,
yeah, exactly. Just you wonder who the installer was. You're like, how did you pull your ticket out of a Cracker Jack box or something? Like, you scratch your head sometimes.
It's astounding to me. We had a bit of a chat online there about inspectors and whatever. I mean, these guys are busting my chops over, whether a TY is served by a clean out or not, and it's, without getting into all the crap about it, I'm like, it's clearly serving them both. What are you talking about? No, you need to change those to Ys and 45s. I'm like, you want to walk over to the place next door? Like, why are you busting my ass when you're clearly the inspector for the area? How do you let that over there go? Did he buy you a couple steak sandwiches or what?
Yeah. No, I know. I've seen some things like looking across rooftops, and you're like, how the hell did that pass a gas inspection? Like, that's not supported at all, right? Like, there's all sorts of shit that you see there. Because I've done a little bit of service with the company that I'm with, and other ones too, and I've just scratched my head and been like, I don't understand how you pass school, or how you convinced somebody in an interview to let you do this work out in the field at all,
right?
So, yeah.
And it's one thing, like you say, to say the education, the apprentices are not up to snuff, but that all has to be supervised by you as a journeyman, and say, yeah, man, that what you're doing here is good and worth it and passes. It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a definite, you can see with some people's work, there's a definite difference between a tradesman and like a craftsman, to say, like, some people actually just take a certain level of pride, so their work's always better than other people and shit like that, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, my experience in the commercial install, I did some of that stuff way back when. I mean, there were guys that would do one of those our skyscrapers downtown, and all they would do for 9 months of their first year apprenticeship was drill inserts and hang pipe.
Hangers, yeah.
Right?
Or what you see a lot too is first years and second years, if they're stuck on like a condo building, all they're doing is pulling water lines, right? Pulling PEX lines to headers, suite after suite after suite after suite, doing that for months at a time. You don't learn anything from that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the problem that I've experienced. You hire a journeyman that says he has commercial experience, and you stick him in front of a boiler, and he can barely unwrap it, let alone install it, right?
Yeah. Has no idea how to read a diagram or a printer whatsoever, or can't even just see it on the wall once you mount the boiler, right?
I had a guy that literally knew the fitting depths of copper pipe off by heart, so he didn't have to measure them.
Yeah,
but couldn't do anything else
because all he'd ever done was just water lines and water mains, and
For 4 years, he cut and soldered. Before press was a big thing, but he could cut and solder better than I could, which was great. But I'm like, what else can you do? Nothing.
That doesn't surprise me. I know when I was with the union, I got moved off of the Stantec Tower to another large project. There was probably about, say, 8 or 9 other third years, because I was a third year at the time. And the foreman, when I showed up, he looked at me. He's like, "Can you do plastic pipe?" I was like, "What do you mean? Can I do plastic pipe? Like, can I glue it together?" He's like, "Yeah, do you stand coat too?" I was like, "Yeah." So he threw me on area drains. I was like, "Why the hell did you ask me that?" He said out of all 8 or 9 third years that he had, all they could do was heating lines. All they knew how to do was thread pipe and fill it up in the air and twist it together.
Really?
Like, what kind of apprentices do you have here? Like, it was such an embarrassment. Like, I felt bad for all these other guys for like never saying anything during your apprenticeship to your foreman, because at the end of the day, you got to say some things too. Like, hey, like I've done this for long enough. Like, can I move on to something else and learn something else? If you're not doing that, you're kind of doing a detriment to your apprenticeship too, in a way, right?
It's your freaking life, right? The people that have come to me and said, "What should I do?" I'm like, you should go spend a year in commercial, a year in residential, a year in service, and then in your 4th year decide, which one you like the most, and go after that. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much, and that's pie in the sky and easy to say, but the problem is, again, like if you're roughing houses all day, and you can glue pipe if you're roughing new residential homes all day, but what happens when you come across a heating system, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're out to lunch.
Yeah. One thing that I found too with a lot of residential guys up here is because a lot of the industry here is kind of piece-based, like for pay. Yeah, so they're all really doing things fast and their way, and that's about it. When they leave that world, if they ever try to come over, they're really, really lost. They don't know how to read blueprints, and that's a huge thing too. So
it's true. It's the same here. Like if you work for one of the big resi companies here, that's how they pay you. They're like, we'll pay you $1,500 for this house. If you get it done today, or it takes you a week, we don't care. I mean, if it takes you a week, you're gonna get fired. But if you can pound one of those out a day, and as you know, they're all, in lots of those places, they're all cookie cutters. So they walk in and bang all their holes, and it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. Yeah.
The same way over and over and over again. So
yeah, you do, and that's great because you can make some money at that. But if you get punted out of that or hurt yourself or whatever happens, like whatever your next move is a pretty tough step up from that.
Oh, well, even like, what if the housing market, as we kind of said a little bit earlier, what if it crashes and they're not producing at that rate? You're not going to be able to go over to a service or a commercial to do anything like that.
This isn't like a dire prediction or anything. I mean, it's just the cyclical nature of it all, right? I've lived through 2 of those where we had 14 houses on the go. This was back in 2006, I think. Had 14 houses on the go, and over the weekend, the builders canceled them all except one.
Yeah.
The dude, finish the one that you're halfway done. The contract's nil and void on the rest.
Yeah.
You're done. Because
out here too in like 07, 08, and then 2014 happened too. There was a lot of houses that got canceled and everything. So it can happen at any time, really, right?
Yeah. And that's when we made the switch, or I made the switch over to commercial service, is because in my mind, it was like, this is the most secure aspect of the business from where I live and where my contacts are to make it work. Right. And I do suspect that the next one is coming. As
end of this year, next year, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they've raised when they say they raise, of course it's the fear mongering, but they say we're raising the interest rate by 50 points. Everybody freaks out, which is basically 0.5%, right?
Yeah.
And so
it's still lower than January 2020 percentage too. So it's not even like it was a hike or anything like that, right?
Right? Yeah, no, it came down when the Bank of Canada anyway sort of played ball with the government and that whole COVID thing when they dropped everything to try and ease that. But the problem is, and you've made reference to it in lots of your own posts and discussions, that the companies are now paying themselves, are they not? Is that not your perception of what's going on?
Yeah, basically, inflation is a real thing, and government has a aspect in it with the amount of money that they're printing and spending and everything. But a lot of these price increases that we're seeing is corporations just pushing prices to a point to see what we will pay and then keep ripping us off and pocketing those profits instead of putting it back into workers or work conditions and all those things. They're just taking big fat bonuses at this point, and that's producing another bubble and another bubble and another bubble that our economy is just sitting in. That's just ready to burst at any fucking given time.
It's we here in Calgary are like, this is the whatever you want to call it. Our economy is based on oil, or has been forever, and I remember, and it's back up there again when oil was over $100 a barrel. Everybody's like, woohoo! And then whatever that was, 2014, when it dropped down to like $35 a barrel.
Yeah, it was 14, 15.
Yeah, and the sky is falling, right? And now, and that's the problem with that sort of cyclical nature of those oil prices, is when it's up and good, people are like, we're going to get it while we can. And it affects not only the whole economy, but the little guys, right?
As you said, like it's our economy out here. So when it's tied to a natural resource that has high fluctuations and everything, you're going to see that mirrored perfectly in the economy too, right? So yeah, it's just weird. This time we're seeing $130 barrel of oil, but we're not seeing, like, I remember in the early 2000s out here when oil was really good. I was younger, like I'm still a teenager, but you saw a lot of those smaller guys reaping benefits off of it. They were making good money because they're either doing hot shot or they're doing stuff tied to the industry, right? They were making money hand over fist. You're not seeing that now with the oil with oil at that price. You're seeing just the big corporations reaping the benefit, and none of the small guys are operating right now because they've spent the last handful of decades increasing their technology to the point where they don't need to hire as many people. They don't need to hire these smaller guys and all this crap. So they're in-house and pocketing it themselves more than that. We're not seeing that overflow point where other people are reaping it. So
yeah, and that's the good and the bad thing of tech, right? Is you're able to remove some of the human factor of it and just let the machines do the work.
Mm-hmm. But then you got to also look at it like, if that's the route that we're going, which it is, right? We're going to start replacing even more people with tech. That we can't allow just a handful of people to reap the benefits. It has to start trickling down to the rest of us, right? If you believe in things like a UBI and things like that, right? People need to be need to reap the benefits also, because up until this point, and even past that, it's still the people doing all the work and the labor aspect of it. That's a whole other discussion too, right?
Creating that technology, right? So do you think that's where it's going? Is the I mean, I think it's the universal basic income is going to be a thing that hits that becomes a necessity because everybody's relying on tech.
Yeah, I think so. I think you'll see that, but it also depends on if the corporations and the governments want to go that route and how much they want to, right, allow us to reap the benefits from. So,
do you think they want us to reap anything? In fact, I saw that it was only a partial clip, and Freeland saying that the Canadians are doing far better than they ever expected them to do, and maybe it's.
I've seen a couple clips of her saying things like that. She's a whole other whole level of psycho, if I could say in a polite way. I cannot stand her one bit. She's cooked. For she's just cooked. So I don't care how much education she has. That doesn't mean that she's intelligent or smart. She's fucked. So
she's crooked, is what she is.
Oh yeah.
Her and when they made that little trip over to Ukraine with JT and his girlfriend.
Yeah. That was them checking in on making sure all of the ways that they've been, embezzling money through there into their own pockets, it's still going through, because that's all the Ukraine is. The West at this point is a way to embezzle money. So
it's been that way for a significant, for decades. It's been the money laundering capital of the world, next to Switzerland, right?
Yeah. So, well, you got to think, their civil war has been going on for 2014. We've been involved with it. We've been training people out there. So we've been funneling money through weapons and everything like that. So they gotta make sure that shit's still going on. So their paycheck, their bank accounts are getting fatter as well. Well, ours are all still hurting, but she says we're doing fine. So we'll just have to take her word for it.
Right? What are you complaining about? You're doing great.
Yeah, I got nothing to complain about at all. Right. Things definitely, gas prices aren't getting out of hand. This is the price we pay for that war, I guess, right? Bullshit.
It is bullshit. Yeah. The fact, the killer, like you say, the killer is Alberta itself all by itself is the second largest oil reserve in the world.
Yeah. We have the ability to be self-sufficient out here. And we really should have, especially when people were proposing the idea 40 years ago of doing that. But we've just allowed outside corporate interests and other things to come in and reap those benefits and take our resources. And the laymen, the people like us, aren't getting rich off shit. And it's our land in a way, right? We live here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have told my kids and whoever else. I'm like, the beautiful thing about it is those resources don't go anywhere, right?
No,
like it's interesting. Sort of the Western Canada, particularly Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, or not BC, Manitoba, have the youngest population of what would be considered Western, whatever you want to call it, Western governments, Western, controlled, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Whereas Ontario and Quebec have one of the oldest populations.
Yeah, they're fairly aged, yeah.
And so I think that bodes well when they realize that what is Ontario, and I'm not being condescending, but what does Ontario provide other than hydro and dairy and what resources does Ontario provide to the world or Canada?
They do have some resource mining out there, and I don't know what exactly, so I can't speak on it. also have a handful of large refinery plants for oil, but they usually refine more import than they do Alberta crude. Like that's mostly Western crude is usually refined only out here. Like it's not sent anywhere else within Canada. No. Obviously, there isn't the infrastructure for that, and those places don't have the refinery capacities or the abilities to refine our oil either. Right?
Yeah, our oil is of a different quality for sure, and it takes a different process to deal with the tar sand product as opposed to what they get out of Dubai or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, Saudi Arabian oil is like really light crude. That's why people like using it to refine for oil or for gasoline, because it doesn't need as many refinery processes and steps to it. So it's a lot cheaper to refine in that regards. But we have enough here that we could easily be controlling our own prices and setting our own prices for gasoline and all these things, and not be so reliant on OPEC and those international thugs, basically, because that's what they are. I'll just say it.
That's what they are. You're absolutely right. And so, do you think that's a possibility? Like, do you think that happens in your lifetime, my lifetime, or is that like a generational thing?
I don't know, because everybody's also at the exact same time predicting lulls in the amount of oil that we'll be using in the next. By 2050, they're saying they're going to see at least a 50% drop, which it might happen, but I don't see us ever being self-reliant on ourselves. I think we'll be too interconnected with everybody else. Even if it's just us in the U.S., in a way, we'll still be connected to somebody in regards to the oil.
Yeah,
oil.
You still have to sell it to someone, right? You can't sell it to yourself and make any money off of it, right?
No. Everybody needs it.
Do you think it's going to drop 50%?
I don't know. Maybe if you see, like, if all these auto manufacturers start hitting these goals of not selling any combustion engines and all that stuff by 2035 and whatnot that they've said, which I just don't see them doing, because they're greedy, and at the end, not greedy, they're a corporation. Their end goal is to make money and everything, so they're going to keep things. I just see them continuously trying to push things off and not actually ever hitting that point. But I hope to a point.
I think it's staged, like you say. I think that 2035 is, look at us, we're trying. Now get back to work, right?
Yeah. It's just an end goal that probably will never be met. It's virtue signaling in a way, right?
So. Yeah. So what if you were in charge of everything, which we're not? What would we? What do you have? Do you have some sort of answer to what's the economy, or where things are going, or how we fix things?
No, I don't. I try to pretend. I try to think I do, but I don't know at the same time. I definitely feel like we should probably, in regards to the economy in Canada, cut back on the level of government spending in regards to the excessive level of it. We're just printing money to give out to people that don't deserve it, don't need any of it, which is kind of excessive. And fueling
the thing that kills me, in the States is doing the same thing. We send all, and I understand what's happening, but they send all that money to foreign entities, right? Like, take whatever came off of your check last week on federal taxes, you get to send it to JT decides it's going to Ukraine, since that's the hot topic, but it's gone everywhere. So how does that end up benefiting you? Does it benefit you in any way?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Most of the causes are kind of bullshit, and if you look into where the money's going, it's just being embezzled into other things, right? The government's not interested in giving it to third world nations and lifting up their people, because they're more concerned about going in there and stealing their resources due to colonialism and everything like that, right? They're not trying to lift people out of poverty like they say they are and sending these things to them. So that's the kind of thing that aggravates me. And what you said too, like with look at the States. It's been, since the war's kicked off, every 2 to 3 weeks, it seems like they can pull $1 billion out their ass to send to for weapons and everything, but they can't do jack for all to help their own people.
Right? There's still, I actually read an article on it the other day that Flint, Michigan is still has awful water. Still.
Well, yeah. It's like, look at us here, right? Like, we're sending all this money to outside entities, and how many indigenous communities don't have drinkable water. It's asinine. It's 2022. We're capable of we're in the process of trying to send somebody to Mars and shit, but we can't give water to fucking everybody within a developed nation. We should be able to provide everybody here.
So, just like for perspective, like the indigenous population is 5% of our population. Like, it's not a big piece. You know what I mean? It would be easily solved, and yet on the radio this morning as I'm driving, did you know that they're this close to being able to garden on the moon? I'm like, what? Are they trying to garden on the moon when nobody on Earth is gardening at the moment? Like, what are you guys talking about?
We should make sure we could probably garden in every corner of this Earth to provide food to people here before we're doing it up there. Right. Pardon?
I didn't look it up, but I should, to see how much that funding, to see if they could garden on the moon. But it's probably, $780 million. Here, Bob, here's $700 million. Let me know if you can reproduce goats that are black. Okay.
Sure. That's easy. I'll spend the majority of that on other things than the actual study.
Yeah. How long do I have to produce that study? 10 years. Okay. Well, don't bug me until you're 9, and then I'll start showing you the results.
And that sounds like your standard government study. All these years, all this money, and nothing ever comes out of it, right?
Right? And what would I do with $700 million? A lot of people I know would benefit from it. Mostly me. Yeah. I'm not totally. I'd spread a little bit of it around. It's crazy that it just seems like it's like a distraction, I guess. I mean, you don't want to go too far down all those conspiracy theories, but there's some weird shit happening out there. What's the weirdest thing you think's happening?
What, conspiracy based or just as a whole?
As a whole.
I don't know.
What conspiracy theories come true?
I don't know. I think I don't really follow too many because some of them I read I just kind of laugh at, but
some of them are hilarious.
I don't know. It's all back to just government overspending and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
I know some people believe that Build Back Better is a whole conspiracy theory and means like I haven't read enough into it, so I'm just gonna kind of ramble on here, I think, but you can kind of see that like it was just a means. Government's trying to like legitimize all their COVID spending and all that shit, but you can see that it's just a means that they're just lining pockets of people that they do dealings with, like corporate lobbyists and all these things. They're not actually trying to benefit or build our society back at all. They're just funneling more money into.
Yeah, they're looking after their. And I've had that discussion with people before. Like it's a legitimate thing, which I don't disagree with. If I'm going to run for the Premier of Alberta, and I say, John, I'm running, I need your support, and you send me $100,000 for my campaign, and I win, like, what's your next move?
In your ear, usually, right?
Yeah, okay, dude. Remember that 100 G's? I got you. Just give me like a week.
Nobody hands out that big of lump sums without having an alternative motive or anything, right?
Yeah.
It's not like somebody donating $20 here and there. That's something completely different. But.
No. Like you say, when they're key donors, which are whatever they are, and that's who I'm talking about. If I was there and I had, whatever it costs to run for the Premier, a couple $1 million. All right, well, I need $1 million. I'll put in $1 million on my own, and I need $1 million from other people. You get 10 of them to help you out with your campaign, then you're in my ear, like immediately. Congratulations, you won. It's Build Back Better.
That's the biggest flaw within our government. Everywhere, literally, it's just lobbyists and these corporations, you know, directing where governments and what government's doing when it should be me and you directing and steering what these people are doing to benefit us and all these other things instead of just a small select group of people. So
Yeah.
right. I don't know if it's conspiracy theory. I think that's almost like common sense and a well-known fact at this point. Right? They don't even try to hide it anymore. It's so fucking apparent. So
They don't. Well, but they still put on the guys, like you say. When they show up, I mean, Ukraine's the one that's the hot topic, but every world leader ends up there, walking the battlegrounds per se for a morning, and then what are you doing for the rest of the 5 days? We don't see what you're doing then. No, you're in the bank making sure all the arm's length deals are just set up. Perfect.
Yeah, everything's still got to go clockwork even in war times, right?
Yeah, gotta make sure those checks clear, right?
Isn't it kind of sad that it's just when you zoom out, it's like, well, they're just profiting off of death in a way. Like it's not.
It's awful.
It is. It's not oil that runs the world. It's murder in a sense when you look at how much weapons industries make and all these things, right? Stock market tanks in February, and the only things that are doing great are, all these weapon manufacturers and whatnot. So,
Yep. There's it's profiting off of people. I mean, that's what it is. And whether it's their despair or their demise is where the money is, where the big money is.
Yeah, you're either profiting off the back of their labor or you're profiting off of their death in a way. It's not a very good system that we live in right now.
It sounds like an awful existence.
Yeah, it's not a fun place, but
so what do you?
Pardon?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say hopefully one day we can see some form of change, but it's hard to not be an nihilist sometimes with it when you just see people's disinterest in voting or government or giving a shit with things. So
yeah, no, you're right. There's lots of times where you just, for me anyway, as remote and as secluded as I've tried to make my own life, I'm like, I could probably up that a couple of grades and just go live in the woods and
completely disappear.
Just remove myself from the madness of it all.
Yeah, sometimes isn't a bad idea. Or wouldn't be a bad idea. Sorry.
What would your kids say about that?
What?
Pick it up and move into the woods.
I think they would enjoy it for the first little bit until they realize the amount of work that would have to go into everything.
We've talked about that around here, and it's the exact same thing. I'm like, you guys wouldn't last 2 seconds. All you guys do is bitch about all the jobs you have to do around here. Imagine if it was you got to go grind the wheat.
Yeah, no. That would even be hard to convince myself to do those type of things. Like, I enjoy gardening and whatnot, but I don't think I could sit there and do that level of it.
No, like the survival level of it. Like, it's nice to have it as, I'm going to have peas in August, 6 times, because that's all the ones that I produced. Meanwhile, I'm going to stop at whatever restaurant I want to make sure I'm full and use it as a supplement.
Yeah. Always having to grind to survive wouldn't be fun. I watch some of those shows on Discovery and shit. I'm just like, man, you people, it's a whole other level. I couldn't do it.
Have you seen those guys that, I don't know where I saw it, but it's in Canada, where they have 5 or 6 couples or people that have decided to go completely off grid.
No.
And it's insane. Like, they're literally out there collecting rainwater off of tarps and...
No, as much as I used to watch like Spider-Man when I was younger and like loved that shit, I don't think it sounds interesting, but after a day or two, I'm sure everybody would get probably pretty sick of it.
Spider-Man would be fantastic. He lives a fantastic life. He spends 4 days in the wilderness and then stops at the local steakhouse when they pick him up and review the footage.
Yeah, it isn't too bad. So
that'd be the life. I could go for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what message do you think you have? Would you like to your kids to know about the world, what you've learned about it, and what it takes to be successful in it?
I guess the standard like hard work aspect of it to a point, but also to have a voice and not just sit back and allow people to walk all over you within no matter what you choose to work in, whatever industry, right? You have to be able to vocalize to people that, I want to move forward or I want to have this opportunity or these type of things, right? Because if you just sit there quiet and meek, you're never really going to advance forward. I feel like you kind of have to have a certain level of ego behind you to kind of to make it anywhere or do anything really. So
yeah,
right. Even if you're faking until you make it, that's some people do very well with that, right?
Yeah, well, that's part of faking it till you make it, right? Is that you want something better, you expect something more, and coupled with what you said, a work ethic that goes with that, then truly, the sky, you can do lots of positive things with your life and for your kids.
Work ethic's one of those things. Like it hits people different at different points in their lives. I've seemed to find, right? I've had 18-year-old apprentice kids that had like a hell of a work ethic, and then I've had, a dad of 3 or 4 that had absolutely in his 30s that had like no work ethic or drive whatsoever, right? It's people completely different. So,
well, yeah, and we talked about sort of the cyclical thing of economies and all the rest of that stuff. I do think our own lives are a bit cyclical with the problems that we have to deal with and the level of interest and effort we put into those same problems that show up. Some that never seem to leave, that are always there.
Always always standing behind you like a shadow or whatever.
Yeah, always those ghosts that waiting to weigh you down if you are not right up to snuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I ran into an uncle that I haven't seen in 10 years today, and that's what we talked about. Just sort of the weight of life. What's that?
It can be a lot sometimes.
It can be a lot. Yeah. He's 85 or whatever he is, and he said, like, it never goes away. There's always a weight, always something to worry about, something to do, and you just got to be able to be good at as figuring out what those weights are comfortable, right?
Something that I wish I was kind of somebody had told me that coming into an adult life earlier on, right? I didn't realize how much shit you're gonna have to balance and everything. So I guess that's something that I'm gonna do a little bit better with my kids and instructing them. Like right when you're done school, everything just kind of hits you. Like so.
I've tried really hard with my own kids and to say, listen, you're like it's coming, and so I won't predict and don't know the exact problems you're going to have, but rest assured you're going to have significant problems in your life that you are going to have to solve. I won't be able to solve them for you. You got to solve them.
Some days it feels like they just keep coming and coming and coming too.
They do, don't they?
Right. With your job and then with your personal life, everything can just kind of
it can crater pretty fast, and it will crater pretty fast. That's my prediction of everybody. Your life at some point is going to crater, and you need to be able to figure out how you're going to withstand when that happens, so you don't crumble into the dust.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, I promised you I'd keep it around an hour, and believe it or not, we're like 56 minutes into this thing.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good, actually. So,
are you still nervous?
No, this is a hell of a lot better. This is like the 4th podcast I've done. The first 2 I did like a decade ago was an absolute train wreck. So those are always like playing over in my mind. But I didn't have to do an interview or get with somebody this time, so it's not going to be all awkward or weird, right?
Yeah, we try not to make it too awkward or weird.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's the would you rather questions.
Okay.
So would you rather live 100 years ago or 150 years in the future?
150 in the future.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, not 100 years ago. No, me and my wife were talking about this actually just the other night. We were watching something. I think it was something set in the Victorian era. I was like, man, screw that. Like, no running water, like all these basic amenities. It's like, nah, that doesn't sound fun. Not one bit. Even though
Start a
it's kind
fire every morning to keep one room cold?
yeah, nobody bathes. Everybody just smells funny. Like that doesn't sound. I worked with a guy like that like a decade ago. Fuck that. That doesn't sound fun. And plus, what's it going to be like in 150 years in the future, right? That intrigues me.
It'll either be it'll be like 200 years ago, or because everything will have cratered, or it'll be amazing.
Well, that'll be interesting. Let's see how society rebuilds its way back after that, right?
Yeah, say. Go back to the rebuilding process.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that given your nobody bathing and no heat or whatever, I think I know the answer to the next one. No heat or no internet for a year.
Oh, I could go no internet. Where we live, no heat. It's
pretty tough, right?
That's really tough. My furnace went down, I think it was 2 years ago, and it was minus 40, and I was surprised how quickly it got cold in my house.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. So have to leave it overnight. So
I've walked into places that haven't had heat for like 4 hours in minus 40. And I'm like, holy crap, we got like 2 hours before everything in this place is done.
I know I had to leave my night because I couldn't get the motherboard until the next day because the fucking wholesaler was closed, right? And I didn't want to pay for an emergency. When I came in the next day, I think it was probably about 2 degrees in my household. It's like, I'm so glad I shut all the water off. That would have been hairy, so.
Well, I've seen those ones that have left it, and it's a disaster. Like, everything is smashed. Showers split, taps split, hot water tanks exploded. It's bananas.
Yeah. When water freezes, water frozen or non-frozen is just destructive as all hell when you look at it.
It's amazing, right? It's like the essential of life, and yet on either end of its spectrum, it'll kill you.
Yeah, right. Like you look at how it shapes, right? It shaped our Earth and everything, and how it'll shape land, right? But we need it to survive at the same time. It's very interesting.
It's a bizarre element for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the last one, and we're pretty much consensus on this. Christmas Vacation or Die Hard? What's the better movie?
Oh, I'm going to say Christmas Vacation.
Oh,
you're
the outlier then, man. Everybody else went with the Die Hard for sure.
Our guy, there's something about that movie and just every scene, just in succession together, is just so perfect to me. Just love it. So.
Oh, Christmas Vacation?
Yeah, Christmas Vacation. Yeah. Plus, when I was younger, my stepdad would always try to compete with this park up the street for Christmas lights. So every year, it always felt like it was just a rehash of Christmas Vacation when he's and everything. My stepdad blew breakers and all sorts of shit because he would just pile on as many lights as possible. So there's that aspect of it too. So
he would have loved the LED aspect because you can pile them all in there now. No doubt at all.
That's my house. I try to pile on as many as possible, keep the tradition going. So
good for you. Good for you. All right. Any last words, big man?
No, not really. I guess I'm gonna try to start posting more for my work so people can see the aspect, because I know there's a lot of service guys and residential guys on Instagram, so I'm gonna try to show the commercial new install side of it a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It's bigger. There's lots to it. Tends to be more complicated. So get it out there. I think that's the best thing that's happened to. I think the social media is one of the best things that's happened to the trade, just to show what we do and how complex it actually is, and how much actually goes into it. and we're not all just dumb plumbers, waiting for our payday on Friday type of thing.
I like seeing too, like all the different pockets, like in North America, and how everybody does different, right, based off of code or right the environment, right, aspect of it too, right? Like it's bizarre to me seeing guys not have to go 10 feet down for their water mains because it doesn't freeze, right?
Every time I make fun of them all when they're like, yeah, I got to do this big dig today, and they pull out their spade and they dig it like 8 inches down. I'm like, dude, what? That's not even a dig.
Yeah, that's gonna freeze. I just keep thinking that every time I see it. That's in the frost. It's not gonna work, man.
And it works perfectly. Anyway, yeah. we live in a freaking weird, ridiculous place. I can tell you that. Up here in Canada.
Yeah. Trying to explain to people how cold it gets up here is pretty fun sometimes.
You have, as you know, John, you got to live it. Like you can say -40, but when you spend 10 minutes in -40, you're like, oh, yeah, that's effing freezing.
When you have to work out in -40, and then you just start. That point, you're just doing 15-minute rotations with your buddy and outside because someone's gonna get frostbite, right?
Yeah. When you do the rotation work, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. I've had one day where started out, it was -40 without the wind chill. It was somewhere in the 50s with the wind chill. Yeah. By last coffee at like 3 o'clock, it was -30. Guys were taking jackets off and shit like that. You're like, this is warm. This is legitimately warm.
It does a number on me every year, right? Yeah. When it goes from, -30 to -15, and I'm like, it's freaking gorgeous out, man. Like, what are you complaining about?
I've had -20 sometimes working on a roof where I've just ditched a couple layers because it's like, this is nice compared to the week we had weeks ago, right? So people will look at you and be like, what's wrong with you? But spend enough time outside, you get used to it, acclimatized, right?
Well, that's the problem, right? It's come September when it's +10 and drops to -10. I'm like, holy crap, it's freezing. I hate this.
Same here.
Take a month or two, and then you're like, all right, this is life again. Yeah.
Stress how important good long johns are. Like, that's such a necessity up here, right? Your base level. When you get that right, you're fine.
Yeah. As long as my rule is that you got to keep your feet warm. If you can keep your feet warm, then everything else will manage itself, right?
Oh yeah, the moment those freeze up, you're kind of screwed. So
yeah, and get yourself some good socks and some good work boots, and you're off to the races.
I bought a pair of insulated work boots. I rock them year round. My apprentice looks at me like I'm cooked. My +30 out and still aren't rocking. I'm getting used to it. Doesn't feel that warm when it hits, a little bit higher. So
yeah. Like you say, +30 is what, 82 or something like that. And those guys down in the States are rocking 118 or whatever the hell it is. I'm like, you guys can have that guy. That's insane. You can't work naked, so.
No. That's why I've always said I'll take working in the cold if I can bundle up. I can't take working in the hot sometimes.
No. Can't. I'm with you. Yeah. One of my best things I like the most after coming back from somewhere warm is breathing in some cold Canadian air. There's a difference to it, for sure.
Yeah. It feels like home, right?
Yep, 100%. Yep. All right, John. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
It's been fun.
Yeah. And awesome. Good luck out there. We'll continue our chats. It didn't come up because I didn't even think of it, but John's one of the guys that keeps me honest on the internet here. When I say outlandish things that I think are out, whatever, he likes to come on and sort of give me the course correction. Maybe you better check that twice.
Yeah, we like to have a session.
Which I appreciate. I think it's great.
That's how you learn. I feel like that's kind of something that's missing from our society at this point. Is there's not enough people like to discuss as much as they like to just yell at each other.
It's true. So. Yeah. No, I appreciate the discussions that we have had, and I suspect we'll have a few more.
Oh, we always will. I'm always up for them.
Amazing. All right, my man. I appreciate it.
Have a good
Thanks
one.
again.
For sure.
Bye, everybody.